A very good afternoon to our guest of honor today, Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea, our mentors, Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka and Mr. Sanjay Bhuwania, and all the members of Millennium Mams who have joined us today for this insightful session. We had the opportunity of hosting Mr. Mukherjea earlier on our forum, and today we are honored again to have him with us today. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
So you are aware of our organization. So I would like to brief you on the growth that our forum has made after your last visit.
Fantastic.
So, sir, we went digital during the pandemic and did 130 plus Zoom sessions from all walks of life and all parts of globe.
Wow.
We opened 2 new chapters, one in Mumbai and one in Bangalore. This year, we attended 12 AGMs of various companies all over the India. We organized an investment conclave in Mumbai in June this year, which was graced by 4 industry stalwarts, Mr. Ramesh Damani, Mr. Ridhan Desai of Morgan Stanley, Mr. Dharma Krishnan of Ramco Cement, and Mr. Sunil D'Souza of Tata Consumer Product Limited. So we have touched lives of more than 6,000 women till now. And our cohort of financially empowered women is increasing, and we are adding healthy number of members to our forum each year from all cities of India and various countries of the world as well. Now, coming to our guest of honor for today, Mr. Mukherjea. Apart from being a best-selling author, Mr. Mukherjea is the founder and chief investment officer at Marcellus Investment Managers. He completed his BSc and MSc in economics from London School of Economics. Mr. Mukherjea was rated as the leading equity strategist in 2015, 2016, and 2017 by the Asia Money polls. Prior to setting up Marcellus, Mr. Saurabh was the CEO of Ambit Capital. Currently, he is also the founding director of Association of Portfolio Managers in India. He continues to be a part of multiple SEBI working groups whose role is to review and reform the rules governing portfolio management in India. As an author, Mr. Mukherjea has written some of the finest books in investment, like The Guru of Chaos, The Unusual Billionaire, and Coffee Can Investing. How can we forget that book, sir? These are some of the gems written by him. So, without any more delay, let us all welcome the most erudite equity analyst, who is also one of the most followed money managers in the Indian capital market, Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea. Welcome to our forum, sir.
Thank you, Priti ji. Thank you very much. So if I could just share some slides, if somebody can enable participant screen sharing, that will be fabulous.
Yes, sir. So you are the co-host.
Fantastic. So I'll use these slides. I appreciate that you guys want to ask plenty of questions. So it's 3:11. I'll try to stop talking by 3:30 so that we get a good 25 minutes, perhaps even 30 minutes for questions, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to break this up into 2 parts.
So first, just to let you know, sir, so we are recording this session.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
So the first part is country mein ho kya raha hai, because I think a lot of people misunderstand country mein kya ho raha hai. And then the second part is how do we make money from it, right? So going straight into the first part. So it's September, middle of September. So I'll make a very simple, conservative forecast, easy forecast. In calendar year 2022, India will be the world's fastest growing large economy. That's an easy forecast to make. It's relatively clear that no other country in the world this year, 2022, no other country in the world will grow remotely as fast as India this year. No other large economy will grow remotely as fast as India this year. But in the 13th May edition of The Economist magazine out of London made a far bolder forecast. They said not just 2022, they said for several years to come, India will be the world's fastest growing large economy. Now, why did the economists say that? They've got no axe to grind. They're not trying to make anybody, they're not trying to flatter politicians. So why did the economist make such a bold statement? What the economist sees, what we see, what many foreign investors see, is that there are broadly 4 things happening in India, which give India a very good chance of growing at a rapid rate, far faster than any other large economy for several years to come, right? Just to quickly summarize those, I'll get into a little bit of detail, but just to quickly summarize. Pehla, infrastructure. Infrastructure, highway network has doubled in the last 10 years. Airline connectivity has tripled. Broadband connectivity has risen 40x. Indeed, I don't think a decade back we could have done a session like this on Zoom. Secondly, we're the only country which in the space of 10 years has reformed both direct and indirect taxes. That's leading to a brutal crackdown on the black economy. Tabahi machriya black economy will give you some remarkable stats about the rate at which companies are shutting down as the country goes from black to white. Tisra, as you squeeze the black economy, as you squeeze tax evasion, it's becoming harder and harder for people to see the logic of investing in physical assets. So the Purana Zamana where people would buy flats in your Salt Lake and Rajarhat and Noida and Gurgaon, that era is gradually fading away. People are increasingly saying what Millennium Mams are saying is what India is saying, which is let's invest in high quality financial assets. Every year for the last 5 years, around 70-80 billion dollars every year has come into the financial system, and that's lowering the cost of capital. As people like you financialize your wealth and invest less in gold and real estate, the cost of capital is falling. Linked to that, the banking system has been cleaned up. A decade back, a whole bunch of gundas used to borrow money from the banks, and default is to steal money. A lot of that has been rectified in the last 4-5 years. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code isn't perfect, but it's done a good job, right? And as a result of all this, what you're seeing in India is very similar to what America went through between 1870 to 1940. करीबन 50 साल में अमेरिका को जोड़ा गया, right? Railroads आए, telegraph आया, 1908 में Model T Ford, the world's first mass-produced car came. By 1930, 1940, America का road network बन गया. Once you join up a big country like America, once you join up a big country like India, the local player, the regional player gets wiped out, and national giants are born in every sector, right? So if you look at America, almost all the American brands that you're familiar with, a Wrigley's, a Coke, Kellogg's, a Pillsbury, a Heinz, General Motors, a Ford, they were all born in that remarkable for 50 years when America got joined up. And honestly, this is why my wife, myself, my colleagues, we migrated to India in 2008. We said India will go through the exact ditto same process. Country को जोड़ा जाएगा, सड़कें बनेगी, railroad बनेगा, airline network बनेगा. At that time, we didn't know broadband बनेगा, but broadband भी बन गया. Tax system बदलेगा. And as you do this, as you join the country up in industry after industry, we are seeing what I call consolidation, which is one or two players are scooping up the entire industry's profits, right? And Marcellus fundamentally is a play on that. Our job, your job, is to look out for the one or two most efficient, most capable capital allocators, the most dominant franchises in the industry. उनके शेयर खरीदिए और बैठे रहिए और कमाइए. So in simple terms, a Titan in jewelry, an Asian Paints and Paint, a Pidilite and adhesives, and there are many other B2B examples of fine organics and emulsifiers, a Divi's Lab in API, आज हम हैदराबाद में उसी वजह से आए हैं. इस प्रकार के champion franchises में निवेश कीजिए और कमाइए, right? So just to quickly go through the changes, right? Beyond the road network doubling, right? If I focus on transport networks, beyond the road network doubling, what's even more remarkable is the freight corridors. 10 साल पहले India had nothing by way of industrial and freight corridors. Now we have over 2,000 kilometers of this. What that means is trucks move quicker, right? So if I look at, say, Hosur, which is on the outskirts of Bangalore, to Vizag, the journey time is halved. Kolkata to Jamshedpur, the journey time is halved. Delhi to Gwalior, journey time is halved. Coimbatore to Delhi, journey times are halved. As you halve the journey time, goods move quicker, working capital की saving होती है, right? I'll focus on the key points in the interest of time. Leaving physical infrastructure behind, if we come to virtual infrastructure, digital infrastructure, right? 10 साल पहले, 11 साल पहले नंदन नीलेकनी जी ने आधार का इंस्टॉलेशन किया, UIDI किया, and basis आधार इंडिया स्टैक बना, आधार के ऊपर इंडिया स्टैक के ऊपर UPI बना है. UPI now is the world's largest financial payment system by far, right? Europe, America में कोई इसका equal नहीं है. I created these slides 4 महीने पहले. At that time, UPI was clocking around $600-700 billion per year in terms of financial volumes. आज वो number करीबन 1.2 ट्रिलियन हो गया है, राइट. यूपीआई इज अ फ्री पेमेंट सिस्टम, इट्स रियल टाइम, देयर इज नथिंग लाइक इट एनीवेयर एल्स इन द वर्ल्ड. And what this is resulting in is what you see in this little table. 99% of Indian payments are 99% of Indian payments अब physical हो गए हैं. So 10 साल पहले paper was 45, paper is now 1. 99% of physical payments in India are now digital. I'm sorry, 99% is digital. By digitizing the flow of money, by making it much harder to keep money in black, UPI is bringing about a sea change in the way money moves in our country. Paper का इस्तेमाल पैसे move करने में almost गायब हो गया है. In our office in Bombay, outside our office, the chai wala, he sells 2,500 cups of chai and coffee a day. He does not take cash, right? अगर आपके पास पेटीएम नहीं है या गूगल पे नहीं है, आप हमारे बॉम्बे में ऑफिस के बाहर जो 25 रुपए प्रति कप का चाय वाला है, सड़क का स्टॉल है उसका, he only takes QR कोड स्कैन करो और उसको 25 रुपए दो. इससे अगर आपके पास नहीं है QR कोड, आप चाय पी लीजिए फ्री में. He doesn't have time to take chiller and go to the bank and all that, right? And ये चेंज काफी बड़ा है. आज मैं हैदराबाद में हूँ, एक ऑटो रिक्शा लिया मैंने 1 घंटे पहले, उसने भी बोला गूगल पे करो या QR कोड का इस्तेमाल करो, कैश की जरूरत नहीं है, right? Now the result of this is a massive generation of data. We are the world's largest users of mobile data. Not only physical infrastructure, हम digital infrastructure change कर रहे हैं, goods जल्दी move कर रहा है, पैसा जल्दी move कर रहे हैं, धंधे के terms में business की तरफ से working capital cycle crunch हो रहा है, right? Secondly, the tax reforms. Right, so GST के बारे में सबको पता है. I'm not gonna elaborate on that. As the longer GST exists, and I've seen tax reforms, indirect tax reforms, many places in the world. जिस प्रकार से GST को implement किया जा रहा है, it's very difficult, increasingly difficult for companies to evade tax. छोटे-छोटे शहर में कुछ कर रहे होंगे, पटना, लखनऊ में कुछ लोग कर रहे होंगे, but it's becoming harder and harder. हर साल 8 लाख कंपनी बंद हो रहे हैं. भारत सरकार के डेटा के मुताबिक every year 8 lakh companies are shutting down. The result is tax collections. आप लोग हर महीने अखबार में पढ़ते होंगे, tax collections, GST collections are touching record highs. Similarly, the direct tax regime, the corporate tax regime था, that changed in September 19. FMG ने 35% का tax rate को 25 कर दिया. In spite of that, in spite of FM cutting the tax rate, direct taxes to GDP is at an all-time high. What does that mean? अगर हमने रेट घटा दिया है फिर भी टैक्स कलेक्शन ऑल टाइम हाई पे, उसका मतलब हो रहा है कि टैक्स नेट वाइडन हो रहा है, टैक्स इवेजन मुश्किल हो रही है, which is why even though भारत सरकार cut the tax rate from 35 to 25, टैक्स कलेक्शन आगे छलांग मारी है. टोटल रिजल्ट इज ओवरऑल टैक्स कलेक्शंस अभी एक्चुअली 12 से भी आगे चले गई. If you look at the right hand side of this bottom table, this suggests 12, but today overall tax collections to GDP is north of 12. This number will have to keep rising. Southeast Asia and China collects 15% of GDP as taxes. Southeast Asia, China का ratio 15 है. India's tax to GDP ratio will have to go to 15 in the next 3-4 years, right? वो tax collection कहाँ से आएगी? जाहिर है बॉम्बे के टाटा बिरला अंबानी से नहीं आएगी. जो छोटा SME है, SME को दबाया जाएगा, SME से और tax निचोड़ा जाएगा. The more the SME gets squeezed for tax, the more you will see chota companies shutting down, the more you will see big companies grabbing share, the quicker you will see consolidation of the economy, right? दूसरा बड़ा change है. तीसरा बड़ा change, right? Through a combination of Raghuram Rajan's hard work, Urjit Patel ji's hard work, Shakti Das ji's hard work, and unquestionably backing from the powers that be in Delhi, क्लीन अप किया गया है बैंकिंग सिस्टम का. 2015 में रघुराम राजन लॉन्च दिस थ्रू द एसेट क्वालिटी रिव्यू, वेयर ही कॉल्ड द CMDs, द चेयरमैन मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर्स ऑफ द 35 बैंक्स इन आवर कंट्री. ही कॉल्ड देम टू द RBI वन इवनिंग, ग्रुप में बुलाया. इसे 2 हफ्ते हैं, रियल नंबर छापो, ये फर्जी नंबर छापना बंद करो. 2 हफ्ते में जो कर नहीं पाया उसके ऊपर मैं कार्यवाही शुरू करूंगा, राइट? एंड दैट्स व्हेन इंडियन बैंकिंग स्टार्टेड रिफॉर्मिंग. जो झूठ मूठ के PNL बनते थे, झूठ मूठ की रिपोर्टिंग होती थी, that got stopped. That was swiftly followed, not coincidentally. ये पूरा plan से किया गया. 2016 में government expedited the insolvency and bankruptcy code through parliament, which said 2016 में bankruptcy code ने क्या बोला? It said once a company is deemed to be an NPA by a bank, promoter G gets 180 days to figure out a plan with the creditors एंड अगर वो प्लान एस्टैब्लिश नहीं हुआ 180 दिन में, 181st डे पे कंपनी की नीलामी होगी. एंड एज यू, आई एम श्योर यू नो, many prominent promoters who looted the country for decades, they've lost control of their companies in this process. It's not a perfect process. I think bankruptcy code में improvements हो सकते हैं, but it's a huge step forward. Now इसका फायदा क्या है? इसका फायदा ये जो चार्ट आप देख रहे हो, for the first time in 10 years, the Indian banking system is in superb health. Stressed assets कम है. Banking system is now proper financing proper assets. Right? मेरे को घर लोन, होम लोन मिल सकती है 7% में. I can get a car loan at 8%, a washing machine loan at 9%. These are some of the lowest rates India has ever seen. So अगर आप US जाओ, US गवर्नमेंट का, US में 10-year government bond yield is 3.5%. US home loan is pushing towards 6%. Right? So सरकार बोरो करती है 10 साल का 3.5 पे, US government borrows at close to 6. India में government of India borrows 10-year money at 7. You and I can get a home loan at 7, right? These are some of the lowest rates the country has ever seen. Speak to any bank manager anywhere in the country, he will tell you that home loan demand is through the roof. Nobody's ever seen these sorts of demand for home loans, right? And the link to that, banking system की financial health, कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी बोलते हैं, मतलब हर 100 रुपए जो बैंक लेंड करता है, हर 100 रुपए में बैंक का पैसा कितना है? आज वो नंबर 16.6 है, 17 रुपए बैंक का है. दिस इज अ रिकॉर्ड हाई फॉर इंडिया. नो अदर लार्ज इकोनॉमी इन द वर्ल्ड हैज अ बैंकिंग सिस्टम विद सो मच कैपिटल इन इट. इसका मतलब क्या? इकोनॉमी का जो कलेजा है, जो हार्ट है, दैट्स इन गुड शेप एंड इट विल कीप पंपिंग आउट लो कॉस्ट क्रेडिट फॉर सेवरल इयर्स टू कम, बोर्डिंग वेल फॉर growth. Right now I'm going to skip this because time के लिए मैं skip करता हूँ इसको. Right? Overall, just to get this clear, tax reforms, transport communication networks, banking system, these are interplaying. Overall result क्या है? Informal sector, black economy पे भयंकर pressure, black economy का share shrink हो रहा है. So for example, if I take say plastic pipes, CPVC, Astral Poly, I remember in my previous session with Millennium Mams I discussed plastic pipes. I think Supreme Industries की discussion की थी जो आप लोगों के बेहाला में मिले थे, न्यू अलीपुर में जब मिले थे. So plastic pipes 10 साल पहले the black sector was 50%. Today it is 35% of plastic pipes, right? And similar trends are being seen in jewelry, in paints, in adhesives, in a whole host of industries. Now, as you squeeze the black economy, as I said, as you squeeze the black economy, savings रफ्तार से financialize हो रही है, right? हर साल 80-90 बिलियन डॉलर आप जैसे लोग डाल रहे हो फाइनेंशियल सिस्टम में. इसका एक तरीका है समझने का, नंबर ऑफ ब्रोकन डीमैट अकाउंट्स, राइट? डीमैट अकाउंट्स 10 साल पहले 19 मिलियन थे, आज एक्चुअली 100 मिलियन के भी ऊपर है. दिस वाज अगेन आई क्रिएटेड द स्लाइड्स 2 months ago. 19 मिलियन से 100 मिलियन के ऊपर चला गया. 5x ग्रोथ इन डीमैट अकाउंट्स विदाउट एनी पब्लिक रिलेशंस कैंपेन कि आप डीमैट अकाउंट सही है बोल के, राइट? एंड ओवरऑल जैसे जैसे ये इकोनॉमी चेंज हो रहा है, जैसे जैसे फॉर्मलाइज हो रहा है, ब्लैक इकोनॉमी स्क्वीज हो रही है, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल नीचे आ रहा है, व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इज in every sector 1 or 2 companies are taking away पूरी industry की कमाई. And overall at the country level, as you can see in that slide, 10 years ago, say 2009, 10, 11, the 20 companies in India accounted for 30% of India's profits. आज वही number 70 के आसपास आ गया है. 20 giant companies today account for 70% of India's profits, right? Now, your and my job is to make money from this, right? Before we get into making money, I wanted to take you through what are the ways companies, smart companies क्या कर रहे हैं, इसका फायदा कैसे उठा रहे हैं. Smart companies are basically doing 3 things to capitalize on these epic changes, right? ये शुरुआत है, 10 साल हुआ है, मेरे ख्याल से और 20-30 साल ये चलेगा. उन 20-30 साल में कंट्री का, इकोनॉमी का पूरा चेहरा बदल जाएगा. So first is working capital cycle घट रहा है, right? If I see the companies in Marcellus's portfolio, करीबन 30 कंपनी है, हमारा जो 13,500 करोड़ है, करीबन 30 कंपनी में निवेशित है. A decade back, working capital cycle for these companies used to be say 70-80 days. वही आज बन गया है 50 days के आसपास. 20 to 30 day reduction आया है working capital cycle में, right? Working capital cycle मतलब from the time the company buys the raw material till the time the customer's cash hits the bank account of the company, right? पैसा lockup रहता है, right? ये number घट रहा है. As I said, trucks are moving quicker. Secondly, financial payments are happening quicker. Because the banks are in such good health, the HDFC bank, the Kotak banks are going to companies and saying, आपके channel को finance दे देते हैं हम. right? And finally, technology आ गया है, right? SAP का installation सस्ता हो गया है, SAP cloud पे चली गई है. Any half decent company is installing technology to collect money from suppliers quicker, right? So working capital cycles, big reduction. Secondly, operating margins improve. Why have operating margins improved? 10 years ago, India notionally to एक देश था, but 10 years ago we were 10 छोटा economies fragmented, broken up, right? I remember when I migrated to India in 2008, मेरे को बताया गया कि पूरी पीएमएस इंडस्ट्री, पूरी की पूरी इंडस्ट्री तब पीएमएस की 8,000 करोड़ की होती थी. और मेरे को बताया गया, if you live in Bombay, Saurabh, people in Chennai are not going to invest with you. If you live in Chennai, people in Bombay or Delhi are not going to invest with you. You are a regional economy. कोलकाता में लोग कुछ जोलोजो का आइसक्रीम ले रहे थे या रॉलिक का आइसक्रीम ले रहे थे, बॉम्बे में वाडीलाल का आइसक्रीम ले रहे थे, दिल्ली में कुछ और खा रहे थे. Whether आइसक्रीम हो, बिस्किट हो, अंडरगारमेंट हो, पीएमएस हो, it was a fragmented regional economy. Today that economy is joined up. आज वही पीएमएस इंडस्ट्री 4 लाख करोड़ मैनेज करती है. Remember, there's been no PR campaign saying PMS सही है. इंडस्ट्री छलांग मार के 8,000 से 4 लाख करोड़ पे चली गई है. There's 5 PMSs including us which individually manage 10,000 crore से ज़्यादा. And I haven't met a single client in the last 4 years who says आपका ऑफिस बॉम्बे में है या आसाम में है. Nobody really thinks having a Bombay office in Bombay or Kolkata or Delhi is germane to the debate about how much money you make, right? And the same change you've seen in industry after industry. We are no longer operating in a regional economy. We're operating in a colossal national economy, the world's 4th largest economy. And zahir hai, as you operate in a larger economy, your operating margins are, your profit margins are far better. And the final way smart companies are making money is they're automating production. Factory में labor की जगह machine लगाई जा रही है. The more you automate the factory, the more you run the factory 24/7, the more your asset turns. Asset turns मतलब for a fixed amount of capital, how much revenue can you निचोड़ो out of the company. This is becoming a massive advantage for well capitalized, technologically savvy companies जो अपने पूरा production line को automate करके workers को भगा के asset turns बढ़ा रहे हैं, right? Now this is the background. Now you and I want to make money from this. So how can we make money, right? So what we've consistently insisted on helping people understand. Can you guys see a slide called portfolio construction process?
Yes.
Yeah. So what we have helped people understand through our books, through our webinars is आपको 3 ही चीजें करनी है पैसे कमाने के लिए हिंदुस्तान में. पहला है फोरेंसिक अकाउंटिंग करना है, राइट? इन डायमंड्स इन द डस्ट पहले 150 पेजेस में हमने फोरेंसिक अकाउंटिंग के सारे मेट्रिक्स दिए हैं, 10 केस स्टडीज दिए हैं, चोर प्रमोटर्स, हाउ दे स्टील मनी. सो चोरों को पकड़ना है आपको. यू डोंट हैव टू टेक देम टू अलीपुर कोर्ट और एनीथिंग लाइक दैट. एफआईआर नहीं दर्ज करना उनके ऊपर, जिस चोरों को पकड़ के उनको पोर्टफोलियो से बाहर कर देना है, राइट? सो फॉर एग्जांपल हमारे फोरेंसिक अकाउंटिंग स्क्रीन में सिंपल मेट्रिक जो हमारे लिए बहुत यूजफुल रहा है, ग्रोथ इन ऑडिट फीस divided by growth in revenues. Whenever you see a listed entity, इसकी audit fees are growing faster than revenues. And कोलकाता में एक ऐसा prominent सा company है, right? जिसकी audit fees उसके revenues से ज़्यादा भागती है. That means promoter जी auditor को chocolate खिला रहे हैं, रसगुल्ला खिला रहे हैं, and you can understand why promoter जी chocolate, रसगुल्ला या समोसा खिला रहे हैं, right? So there's a bunch of forensic metrics. We can get into them. There's interest. You use that, you weed out 40% of the listed companies. ये पहला elimination हो गया, right? Second is even amongst the clean companies, even amongst promoters who are not stealing money, you want to identify promoters with दिमाग, right? जिनकी अक्ल है, right? What promoters don't realize is उनका अक्ल, उनका IQ उनके माथे पे लिखा होता है. In their forehead it says how much brains a promoter has. The metric which measures promoters IQ is called return on capital employed, right? So you and I look for companies where return on capital employed at least cost of capital से ज़्यादा आ रहा है. Cost of capital मानिए 15 है. Therefore, you and I are looking for companies where return on capital employed is कम से कम minimum 15%. ROC, by the way, is nothing but operating profit divided by धंधे में कितना पैसा डाला है मालिक ने, right? Now, vast majority of Indian companies actually struggle to pass this simple 15% का filter, right? So if step 1, 40% companies die. Step 2, ROC above cost of capital alongside reasonable revenue growth. यहाँ पे आधे कंपनी यहाँ पे खत्म हो जाते हैं. So if you start with the BSE 500, you're now left with only 10% of the universe. 50 रह गए हैं. 500 में से. On this final 50, you're going to do the final layer of work. Final layer of work क्या है? You don't just want a clean promoter. You don't just want an intelligent promoter. You want a monopolistic promoter. आपको बाहुबली चाहिए. आपको monopolistic dominant promoter चाहिए. How do you know? How uh, um, how do you know whether promoter is dominant or not? In Diamonds in the Dust, we've given you a simple framework. इसमें थोड़ा सा काम करना पड़ता है, but it's very doable. And the more you lock into this research framework that I'm showing you, उतना ज़्यादा कमाओगे आप. So you're basically looking for companies, just to keep it simple, you're looking for companies who are selling the product 20, 30, 40% higher price pay compared to competition, right? आपको वो वाला कंपनी चाहिए जो कंपटीशन के मुकाबले प्रीमियम प्राइस पे बेच रहा है. इन स्पाइट ऑफ दैट, इन स्पाइट ऑफ द प्रीमियम प्राइस, द कंपटीशन कांट डू अ थिंग. दे कांट टेक अ सिंगल कस्टमर अवे फ्रॉम द कंपनी. एंड सबसे आसान एग्जांपल है, सबसे आसान एग्जांपल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस पैराडाइम इज टाइटन, तनिष्क. तनिष्क की मेकिंग चार्जेस आज नहीं, 20 साल से कंपटीशन के मुकाबले 30% ज्यादा है. मेकिंग चार्जेस आर सिग्निफिकेंटली हायर. अभी एक ज्वेलर के ऑफिस से ही आ रहा हूँ जो हमारा क्लाइंट है. And he says, in spite of that, Tanishq के customer लेना नामुमकिन के बराबर है. So your and my job then becomes to figure out why is it that, you know, Tribhuvan Das, Zaveri, या Jave Lucas, या Kalyan, या Malabar, why can't they copy Tanishq? Why can't they take away Tanishq customers? Because they can't copy Tanishq. Tanishq की return on capital 35 है, much higher than the competition. The surplus capital a company generates is ROC minus cost of capital. 35 minus 15 is 20%. हर वर्ष, every year, Titan increases its capital employed, reinvests 20% extra capital, which is why, no surprises, last 20 साल में Titan की free cash flow compounding 30% रही है और उनका share price compounding 35% रहा है. मतलब last 20 साल में Titan ने आपको मेरे को 350 गुना कमा के दिया है, right? और यही काम पीडिलाइट करती है, यही काम एशियन पेंट्स करता है, यही काम हम जो हैदराबाद में डिवीज लैब से मिल रहा है वो करते हैं. और इसलिए the simplest way to make money in India is look for promoters who are honest, चोरी नहीं करते, दिमाग लगाते हैं और मोनोपोली बनाते हैं. एक बार आपने आइडेंटिफाई कर लिया है, इन्वेस्ट कीजिए, लोड अप ऑन देयर शेयर्स एंड राइड विद देम एज दे कॉन्कर द कंट्री. ना तो पी मल्टीपल देखना है, ना तो एफएनओ में जूझना है, और ना ही हर रोज शेयर प्राइस ताक के सोचना आज क्या खरीदे बेचे. दैट यू कैन डू एज अ हॉबी, बट पैसा बनाने के लिए लोड अप ऑन द इंडियन मोनोपोलिस्ट and make roughly 10x in 10 years. So I'll shut up there, Preeti. Whatever questions.
Thank you so much. Our mentor Dhanuka sir also teaches the same things that you have, I mean, iterated. It is like both of you saying the same things.
So Preeti, I'll tell you a story, right? ये हमारी लाइफ की ट्रेजेडी है और ये स्टोरी का आप लोगों के लिए अहमियत भी है. धानुका सर जैसे लोगों को जो हम बोल रहे हैं वो 5 मिनट में समझ आ जाता है, उनको आगे समझाने की जरूरत नहीं है. And then there are millions of people जिनको अगर मैं 5 घंटे भी बात करूं ये बात समझ नहीं आती. So वो हमारी लाइफ की ट्रेजेडी रह जाती है. वो बेचारे पी मल्टीपल ताकते ही रह जाते हैं सारी जिंदगी.
Exactly.
और समझ में आने के बाद भी मिस्टर मुखर्जी वो लोग करेगा नहीं, बताओ.
हाँ जी, हाँ जी. So you're saying आप, हाँ, आज आप बोल रहे हो they look at P multiples because there's nothing else to do in life.
So yeah, so Mr. Saurabh, let us take this this program forward. I would like to call Vineet, our president from the Bangalore chapter, to take this forward from here for the question answer session.
Thank you, Preeti. Good afternoon, Mr. Saurabh. You know, the optimistic view of our country is actually shared by our mentors and us. Like Mr. Bob Sternsill from McKinsey, the McKinsey CEO said, this will not be India's decade, but India's century. So thank you for reiterating that. And now we'll start with the questions around. And I'll also ask all the members to post their questions in the group, the names in the chat group. So, and I'll start with my question. Mr. Mukherjea, domestic investors are on the rise. Household financial savings on India are 15% of our GDP. And like you mentioned, abhi to kahani shuru hui hai. Picture abhi baki hai. How do you think that will affect the stock market?
Right. So lovely question, Vineet. So let's look at it in two ways, right? The first effect is already visible as household financial savings rise, as you rightly said, they're rising, and And I think this is just the beginning, right? As household financial savings have risen from 5% of GDP 7-8 years ago to 15, cost of capital has already fallen. Just to give you a sense, 2004, the 10-year Government of India bond yield was 17%. Today it's 7%, right? And because cost of capital has fallen, these small companies that we have in our little champs portfolio, they are going global, right? So the छोटे companies, GMM, Pfaudler, Alkyl Amines, um, Garware Technical Fibers, right? These companies are increasingly becoming world leaders, although their market cap is no more than $1 and $2 billion, right? $1-2 billion के छोटे companies world leaders बन रहे हैं. Why? Because their cost of capital has fallen, right? Second implication, which you can see, is this whole angel investing boom. I'm sure you guys are all, many of you are angel investors. I live in a place called Powai in Mumbai. The local Starbucks is a colossal Starbucks. It's an indoor stadium जैसा है. And the entire reason the Starbucks like an indoor stadium is IIT Bombay सामने है. IIT Bombay का 19 साल का बच्चा आता है, पूरे हमारे इलाके के angels fund करते हैं. Whether it's a good idea or not, time will tell. But there's a WhatsApp group. There's a WhatsApp group called Powai Angels. Now, jokes apart, the reason my middle class neighbors in Powai have become angels is cost of capital नीचे आ गई है. They've realized buying another flat in Powai or Mulund is not going to make them rich. So they spend every weekend saying 10 lakh, 20 lakh, 30 lakh कौन से startup में लगाना है, right? So this is already manifest cost of capital. But the real story, let's just quantify the real story which will happen on savings. The RBI says only 5% of household wealth in India, not annual income, household wealth, only 5% is in financial savings. 95% is still flats, right? These are the flats in Sarjapur and Noida and Rajahat and so on, right? So 95% is still flats. Assume what's happened in the last 5 years sustains, which is 1% a year shifts. 1% shifts from physical to financial. That means over 10 years, 10% of household wealth will shift. Now, our reckoning in Marcellus is total household wealth in India is around $10 trillion, right? Total household wealth, all of us together, our household wealth added up is 10 trillion. 10% of 10 trillion is $1 trillion. $1 trillion will come and hit the financial economy, which is why the FII, whilst, you know, I don't say this to my FII clients, but the FII now is slightly secondary. हम जाते हैं US, साल में 2 हफ्ते जाते हैं, बाकी time 50 weeks we come and meet you guys, because you guys are now the central fulcrum of the story. When we meet the American endowments, we are very nice to them, but we also tell them that, look, if you want to invest in India, please do so. We're not going to kill ourselves chasing your money, because the real story is $1 trillion of money from people like you coming and pushing down cost of capital. By the time my son and daughter, who are 13, 14, 15 today, by the time they enter the job market, I reckon the 10-year Government of India bond yield will be 2-3%. That will then drive the next leg of growth.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. So it's glad to hear that the domestic retail investors are very important now for everyone.
I don't think you guys are retail. Whilst you'd love to say you're retail, I think that's too
Thank you, Saurabh, about that. Our next question would be by Sunita Rock. Sunita, would you please come over for your question?
Yes. Hi, Saurabh.
Hi,
great hearing you. My question is actually based on one of the comments you have made in one of your interviews. You have mentioned that the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Yeah.
So could you explain that in today's context, what you mean by that?
Let's take two sides of it. Let's take the naughty side first, right? So I would love to believe that this accounting fraud piece that I talk about is history, but my reckoning is we will see epic accounting fraud in the VC investment ecosystem, right? Bada fatega, ab agle 1-2 saal dekhna. A lot of the foreign VCs, especially the foreign VCs, I think have been taken for a solid ride, right? Unko laga GMV VMV bana, actually Dubai mein ghar bana unka paisa leke. So that's the more things change, they'll remain the same from a negative perspective. The positive perspective is the great capital allocators, companies which are run by smart promoters, high on ethics, high on governance, smart business people, people who build monopolies, they will still create the most amount of wealth for you and me in the next 10 years. So just to take Titan, for example, right? Titan created 3x, 330x in the last 20 years. Whilst there will be other jewelers who will come through, in the next decade, Titan will still be an epic wealth creator. So people who have delivered in the past through hard work, through honesty, through business intellect, business brains, they will carry on making a lot of money for you and me. So that's why I said the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I would like to call Sheila Mitra for her question. Sheila? Okay, let's move on to...
No, I'm there, Dilip.
Yeah, please switch on the video.
My video is on.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Sheila. Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, Saurabh, and thank you. And really thank you for reinforcing all the views that we already hold. We are a hardcore investing forum, but my question to you today is a little bit different. You know, from what I understood, like you said, as the big get bigger, there is a lot of blood on the streets. And also things like, even say if you take HDFC Bank, I mean, turnover growing at maybe 8 times and employment at twice. So India's social stability, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's why I had the Jan-Dhan Aadhar piece. So this is and to be fair, I think polity is aware of it. Both sides of the political divide are aware of it. There's a whole host of people, not just restricted to politicians, who worked very, very hard to build the Jan-Dhan Aadhar mobile construct. So what's happened is, and you can do this, it's very easy to do, just talk to a bunch of people who are low income people. Talk to, say, taxi drivers, auto rickshaw drivers, go to shopping malls and these fellows who sell credit cards. What you realize is if you don't pass class 12 in India, you can't even get a job as a car mechanic now. So I was in Kolkata last week and a car mechanic I know said, car mechanic बनने के लिए कोलकाता में आपको class 10 का certificate दिखाना पड़ता है. So if you don't get educated at least to class 12, you're finished in India, right? And our maths is roughly 200 million people in India have that plight. They're not educated to class 12. They're not required. Even NHI road projects are now automated. Every company we invest in obviously is automated, right? So what the polity has decided is, we will create for them this Jan-Dhan Aadhar mobile construct, right? Aadhar number hoga. Aadhar number will be seeded with a bank account, Jan-Dhan ka bank account, and mobile pe message aayega. What this is doing is, this is delivering around $70 to $80 billion of welfare payments to this 200 million Indians, right? Roughly 60 million families, right? These guys are getting welfare payments and they are staying above the breadline courtesy that. Right, this will have to ramp up, right? So my reckoning is 2.5% of GDP will have to go on this, and I don't see there any solution, right? We can call it koi Pradhan Mantri Awas, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, La Bharti, NREGA. We'll give it different names, but fundamentally we will have to transfer 2.5% of GDP. Remember, tax to GDP I reckon goes to 15. So 2.5 divided by 15 is the amount we'll have to give to these 200 million people to keep them above the breadline, right? That is the payment we'll have to make. What Aadhar does is it prevents fraud. Duplication nahi hota. Purane zamane mein, ration card zamane mein, you could collect in the city, you could collect in the village. There was duplication. And in the Purana zamana, the middleman took away 70-80% of the subsidy payment, right? Aadhar has put an end to duplication, and it's reduced the intermediary stealing the money. But this pipe is now ready. This pipe will have to get ramped up as we get richer. The nature of capitalism, right? Whether it is America 1880 to 1930, Japan after the Second World War, Korea when it industrialized between 1970 and 2000, the nature of free market capitalism is it's sabka saath and a handful of people ka vikas, right? In just crude terms, it's sabka saath and your and my vikas. Naturally, a lot of people get left behind. The polity needs their votes, and therefore the polity is incented to tax you and me and give them the money, right? And that's the dynamic with Jan-Dhan Aadhar Mobile. That's the pipeline that's been built, and I think this pipe will become fatter and fatter to keep the peace in the years to come.
Very good. Yes.
Thank you, Saurabh. Next question by Purvi Anand.
Hello, Mr. Mukherjea.
Hi, Purvi. Hi there.
Yeah, so, you have made a statement saying that the best way to think about investing in any sector in India is to look for the strongest companies. So I have two questions. One is that what is your definition of strongest company? Is it like how you mentioned, you have to look at the strongest promoter? And the second question is it like, why is it wise to take strongest company from each sector, like pharma, strongest company from pharma, automobile, FMCG, cement? So is it wise to do from every sector one company in your bouquet, or how in your portfolio?
So lovely question, Purvi. So I've tried to address this in both Diamonds in the Dust and in Coffee Can, but let's just simplify it. Just to simplify it at its essence, the best way to identify the strength of a company is look at ROC over the last 10 years, right? EBITDA divided by fixed assets, working capital, cash in bank. Over a decadal cycle, the company that has delivered the best ROCs should be deemed to be the strongest, provided they've grown at a reasonable rate. You're trying to avoid people like, say, Castrol or Hawkins, where ROC hai, but growth nahi hai. Provided you just take care that growth at least 10% hai per annum. Look at 10-year ROCE, and that'll give you a good sense of who's the strongest. Should you do every sector? You'll find some sectors. For example, metals and mining. Metals and mining, I don't think anybody crosses 15% ROCE over a 10-year cycle. Hota hi nahi kisi ka. So just give them a pass. Telecom, kisi ka bhi number nahi aata. Real estate, kisi ka bhi number nahi aata. So you're not Bharat Sarkar. Bharat Sarkar has to look after everybody. You are looking after Purvi Anand's wealth compounding. So look at sectors where Purvi Anand is getting ROCE above 15, right? And if promoter ji calls and says, Purvi, aapne hamara share nahi liya, say that, sir, aap kama ke to dikhao, fir aapka share lenge. So look for ROCE above 15 as a minimum. Sectors such as real estate, telecom, steel don't deliver that. Give them a pass. Sectors such as cement, sheet cement does deliver significantly good ROCEs over extended periods of time. Similarly, an Asian Paints, similarly a Pidilite, a Titan, and so on. So you can do this at every sector, subject to the caveat, 15% Malik ko lana chahiye.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you.
Jyoti Balia, please to come in with your question.
Thank you, Denise. Good afternoon, Saurabh. So my question is regarding the GST. When you talk about the tax to GDP ratio should go up to 15%. And we hear that, there are plans that we might have a 1 GST rate. So how does this work?
So they'll keep squeezing GST. So GST mein inko fayda kya ho raha hai? The way it's been constructed is very clever. So for example, for Marcellus to seek input tax credit, I have to give up the names of all my suppliers. Agar maine nahi diya supplier ka naam, I won't get credit. So obviously I will give up the names of my suppliers. For my suppliers to get input tax credit, similarly hoga. So what's happening is every year, any business which is actually reasonably significant, somebody is going up to Bharat Sarkar and saying, this guy is actually generating business. And Sarkar is then saying, that's interesting, hamare data mein to nahi aa raha. So chhapa pad raha hai, ED, all of that jazz, right? So increasingly, companies who are not paying tax are winding up. So if you look at the Ministry of Corporate Affairs data, saal mein 7.5-8 lakh companies band ho rahe hain. So as the naughty people shut down, the market share migrates to the people who pay tax, right? Now, separate from that, they might say rather than having services ka 18 and chappal ka 6 and luxury footwear ka 10, they might say let's blend it at a certain rate. I think that'll be some time coming. I think we'll probably move to first to a 2-tier structure, perhaps probably 18 and 10, and then maybe one fine day 18 and 10 ka blend karke shayad 14 layenge. So the rate is a secondary dynamic. The more powerful dynamic is the way data is collected. There's a network effect. Just prakar se Facebook grow kiya 20 saal. Right. Same network dynamic is driving GST collections. As all of us, as more of us want to claim GST input tax credit, and we want to claim that, right? So mera GST effective rate tar jata hai. As more of us come into the GST ambit and we want to claim input tax credit, the more we give up the names of people back behind us, and they do it behind it, and that way they're widening the ambit using technology and a little bit of enforcement directorate and so on.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Meghna Bajoria, please to come in with your question. You have to unmute yourself, Meghna. Sorry.
Sir, you mentioned in one of your interviews that the banking system is in the best shape in the last 20-25 years. So what is your view on financial entities like housing finance and NBFCs?
So I mean, there's literally 10,000 such entities regulated by the RBI. No more than 4 or 5 actually make money. I mean, they show PAT, but you'll see no more than 4 or 5 have ROE above 15%. So ROE above 15% would be what? Chola, Bajaj Finance. It's a really short list, right? I'm not going to get into all the names.
Yes.
So much like real estate, whacking up a tower, buying some land, buying some cement and saria and putting up a tower isn't very hard. But making money as a real estate developer on an ongoing basis is very hard. And similarly in NBFC and even in banking, right? 35 scheduled commercial banks, barely 5 actually generate an ROE above cost of capital. So overall, the point I'm driving at is whether it is in banking, whether it is in telecom, whether it is in real estate, don't get carried away by top line growth. हमारे देश में लोग बहुत excited हो जाते हैं, EV में growth है, telecom में growth है, right? Growth doesn't mean anything to you and me. पैसा बनाने के लिए promoter ji has to show ROE or ROCE for a non-financials company. Promoter ji has to show ROC above cost of capital. The only way promoter ji will show ROC above cost of capital, वो airlines में हो, telecom में हो या banking में हो, is by building barriers to entry. Promoter ji has to build something which the competition doesn't have. तो telecom में किसी ने किया नहीं है, real estate में किसी ने किया नहीं है, airlines में किसी ने किया नहीं है, EV में किसी ने किया नहीं है, metals and mining में किसी ने किया नहीं है, तो पैसा नहीं बन सकता.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deepshika, can you please come with your question?
Hi, Saurabh. Good afternoon. While we've discussed a good amount on what we should buy and what we should hold, can you talk a little bit about the art of selling and when we should not hold and how we should book profits?
3 circumstances, right? So provided this question of selling only arises if you've bought. So amongst the stuff we buy, we sell on 3 triggers. Promoter ji chori kar rahe hain. So we go and discuss the chori with him. It's usually a him. Usually they listen, to be fair, right? We point out to them, aapne paise nikale hain. They become embarrassed and they make a Bombay Stock Exchange announcement reversing the theft. If they don't reverse the theft, we sell. Second is we are investing in monopolies. As a result, these companies are generating huge surpluses. If they misallocate the surpluses, right? If they misallocate the surpluses, they're doing stupid capital allocation. Once again, you engage in a dialogue. But if after, say, 5-6 months of talking to them, their capital allocation is not making any sense, right? Cricket team khareed raha hai, private jet khareed raha hai, hotel laga raha hai, then you get out of there, right? Third is promoter ji ages, right? He's become multi-billionaire. He rises on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he starts doing, NGO, SHNGO, social sudhar, etc. And the next gen comes through, and the next gen don't have business acumen. If you spot that, we call it lethargy. The first gen becomes lethargic. They start wanting to get, focus on other aspects rather than making money. The second gen comes through, but they don't have the business chops. In which case you sell, right? So 3 triggers: corruption in a way, capital allocation, and lethargy, tiredness on the promoter's part.
Thank you.
Yes,
that was a very relevant question. Thank you, Deepshika. On that note, Saurabh, I would like to call Akansha Gupta from a Calcutta chapter to give a vote of thanks.
Very good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of Millennium Mams, I would like to thank Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea for taking time, his wisdom and knowledge. The way you summarized India's growth made us believe that ours is indeed the fastest growing economy. And so our market will have huge growth in the coming years. You put light on Indian banking reforms and how people are not investing in tangible physical assets, rather pumping in money in financial sector. The insight to look out for the most dominant stocks in their respective sectors and invest in them and hold on to it for long term and see your money grow will help us in decision making. The way you explained the portfolio construction process was truly insightful. Thank you for the insights you gave us today and journey. I would like to thank our mentor, Mr. Vishnu Dhanuka and Mr. Sanjay Bhuwania for giving us this opportunity to attend this enriching session by Mr. Mukherjea today. Thank you so much.